fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
As the remnants of Hurricane Ida push through our northeast region, bringing drenching rains to much of the area, our hearts and prayers go out to our friends and family down in Louisiana, an area which has just been absolutely devastated from this ugly, nasty storm. Jim Hutchinson with the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's hard not to think about Katrina, or for us, Sandy, when you see some of the devastating, just nasty photos, especially around the Grand Isle area. I'm sure those folks, it's going to take a while to rebuild down there. So if you see any charity efforts, if you see somebody collecting, or definitely reach out to them. I just would not want to go through that again. So it is definitely going to be some time before they return to normal there. And of course, that storm comes up through the middle of the country, leaves us with even more rain. Although hopefully by the time you're seeing this, we're coming to the end of that gale force, that gale warning on Thursday. It's supposed to be done by Thursday at noon. And once the rains go through, it leaves us with a Labor Day weekend forecast in the New Jersey, Delaware Bay region in particular that looks mostly dry throughout the weekend. Seas mostly subside, a little breezy, but all things considered not too shabby when you look at the NOAA weather forecast for the inshore waters. Offshore, for those looking to get off to the AP or the Hudson or the Cigar, it looks a little less hospitable, except maybe Saturday. Saturday looks like a brief little window if you want to get out there. But again, you guys who fish the offshore grounds know you got to pay attention to that offshore weather forecast, so keep an eye on it. It would be nice too to jump in on some of those mid-range bluefin or some of the mid-range pots where the mahi hopping the pot hopping for mahi has been pretty good. In fact, I just found out from Bernie DeMoore. He's a longtime subscriber. He's fishing on the Captain Ike out of Delaware. They were out last week, had 49 mahi in the 3-pound range. They also had a real nice one, 25.6 pounds, weighed in over there at Hookem and Cookem in Delaware. Now, Bernie said, regrettably, the guy who caught the big fish, that was Nate Halteman of Harleysville, PA. And Nate was not a subscriber, as Bernie was. So that fish couldn't qualify for the Fisherman Magazine's Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. That's a members-only contest. You got to be a subscriber to the Fisherman to participate in that tournament that's season-long, 8 different species. It carries all the way through November. And you are competing, of course, for that new Steiger 255 center console powered by a Yamaha 300. But even if you don't earn enough points in that contest to win the grand prize, we are giving away quite a few awards along the way. As a matter of fact, Fish of the Month honors for August, for example, an Accurate Turn 400X and a fish mount from Global, and a fish mount of a mahi. That would look terrific. The current leader, it looks like, in that mahi August monthly fish of the month award is John Mafia of Little Egg Harbor. He had a 51-inch, 30.2 pound dolphin caught at Lemke's last week. That was weighed in over at Chestnut Neck Marina. Now, the August monthly has come to an end, but keep in mind, we have a little grace period to allow people to get those last minute entries in. So we have to see, we'll have to watch out next week. I'm pulling for you, John. But there is still time for you to enter the rest of the season. We've got Porgy as the fish of the month in September. Not a popular fish down in South Jersey, but certainly a few more of those hubcaps if you're heading out of the Raritan Bay. Join us for $29.95 over at thefisherman.com. Get your subscription to the Fisherman magazine up and running. I heard from Eric Rock. He's a brand new Fisherman subscriber, a regular viewer of our weekly video forecast. He told me he just subscribed recently, but he got to chasing those albies in the northern Ocean County surf last week. He said, didn't get the albies, but look at this one. Got into a beautiful 26-inch weakfish in the suds. That's a heck of a fish in the surf. That is a qualifying fish, weakfish for the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. But Eric said, you know, figuring where these fish stand in terms of the population now, he let it go. That's nice. But I'll tell you, that's the kind of cool thing about fishing in the salt water, right? Is you just never know what you're going to stumble into unless you're throwing a couple of lures. I think it's Tom Waits once said, fishing for a good time starts with throwing in your line. Which brings me to the fact that I tried to put a new coat of paint on those old beach towns last week, talking about all those Albie beach blitzes. Yeah, sometimes I can be the kiss of death. Had them boiling at my feet on Thursday. Had about 6 casts that should have worked, but didn't. They were the most finicky fish. You know, sometimes you really just got to make sure there's no hardware. You got to match them right up. I was talking to Joe Baggs earlier this week. We were talking about leader materials. He says sometimes he goes down to 15-pound fluoro. But I'll tell you what, the last I heard, we had good reports outside of Manasquan on Friday. I talked to Eric Bunz in the reel seat earlier this week. He said they were still in and out of the Monmouth County surf just north of Manasquan. And I had plenty of emails, texts, Facebook messages last week after I did last week's video forecast about the Albie. Some people did score. Raymond Seo, for example, Triborough fishing fame on YouTube. He had those hardtails off a Monmouth County jetty. Heard from Justin Miller also, who put the hook in a false Albie before release. A nice fat Albert. He caught on a rod that he just built. First time ever building a fishing rod. You might have to build one for me as well. It's patience in the surf, though, for sure. I know if you deer hunted at any point in your life, there are a couple of different ways to deer hunt. You can go driving them out of the woods and go on a bunch of people pushing them out, or you can sit in that stand and wait for hours. And sometimes patience is the key in the surf. But by boat, yeah, maybe you want to go driving for them. Get them on the troll. Rose Warren had an 11-pound Albie on Saturday. She was with her husband, Paul. They were trolling a purple and black daisy chain at the Manasquan Ridge. Now, Paul told me they had a bunch of Albies, but this one, this 11-pounder, was one of the biggest of the lot. So it's definitely worth looking at some of those ridges and lumps just off the Jersey Shore. Now, when I say Albies, in this sense, I'm talking false albacore, right? And false albacore has the table quality of well, I guess I would say canned dog food. Don't ask me how, I know, but I do. On the other hand, if you're on the offshore grounds and you hear the term albacore, that's the true albacore, also referred to as longfin tuna. And we are getting into the season where the albacore, the true albacore, the longfin, definitely makes up a little bit more, especially of that troll bite, for some of those guys getting off in between windows in September and October. Now, while it's not as tasty as big eye, bluefin, or yellowfin, true albacore is still pretty good on the grill, and it's also a popular item for guys who are making canned tuna at home if you're interested in getting into a fall project of canning tuna. You do have those Spanish mackerel in the mix as well. Clark spoons, the rapalas, the yozuris on the troll. In the surf, you might try those Joe Baggs resin jigs, the Hoagie epoxy jigs, of course the Deadly Dicks, or the slim waves or mid waves from Tsunami, all work in the surf. Now, these Spanish mackerel are tasty if prepared right. As a matter of fact, check out the post from Andy at Riptide Bait and Tackle in Brigantine this week for a little example of how. And those Spanish mackerel are just a couple of miles out. I highly recommend you bleed them right away, and when you get them back, if you're going to serve them that night, make sure you trim out those pin bones. But I like to saute them in a little bit of taco seasoning. It's a great entry for those fish tacos at home. Good time of the year for these summer visitors. A lot of our summer visitors at the Jersey Shore are going to be going after the Labor Day weekend. But what we're left with is some of those exotics that we get. And the greenheads, by the way, are still here in Little Egg Harbor. I'll let you know. I can tell you that right now. I heard from Eddie Markowitz aboard the Kraken out of Point last week. 53-inch, 50-pound cobia on a wreck just shy of 10 miles outside of Manasquan. Nice fish. So again, you never know until you drop a line in the salt what's going to be down there. We do have some reports of some jumping fish just off the beaches, some silvery fish, some sharks as well. So if you're out offshore or working the beaches, keep your eyes peeled for what you might see jumping out there. I'm hearing some spinner sharks. I'm also hearing a couple of juvenile duskies in the mix as well, which brings me to another topic. If you end up catching a shark and you have questions, you don't know what species it is, let it go. The last thing you want to do is get into an enforcement mess because you're bringing home a shark that you're not supposed to have. Again, as a reminder, some enforcement officers are in fact monitoring Facebook and other social media accounts looking for violators. This is a warning from the Delaware DNREC enforcement Facebook page last week, so just keep that in mind. If you are tangling with a sandbar shark or a juvenile dusky in the wash or on the inshore grounds, make sure you release that fish as quickly as possible. possible. Let's get on to the Jersey Shore fluking, shall we? Deeper water structure seems definitely like it's the way to go at this point, with the temperatures being what they are, and as we get into these later stages of the season, with just another couple of weeks, another few weeks to go for the 2021 summer flounder season here at the Jersey Shore. Rob Swakonik let me know about this 13.4-pound flukeasaurus caught out of Belmar last week on the Ocean Explorer. Nice fish. He said Bob Quinn was at the helm and mate Dave Kay was minding the net. That monster taped out at 32¼ inches, nearly 15½ inches across. Excuse me for a second. Man, you thought these greenheads were going to go away by now, but they sure haven't. Hopefully after this tropical storm, maybe that'll drive them out of here. But I'll tell you what, that's the only drawback to being down here in Little Egg Harbor in the Great Bay Area. Jeff Zielinski, sorry Jeff, he sent me this shot of Chris Salino with a true doormat of 10 pounds. So yes, reefs and wreck sites, definitely the way to go. I spoke to Captain Bob Cope from Cape May earlier this week. He's already set up on his deep water grounds. He's gone real far off, but he's had a phenomenal bite. So again, some of that deeper water, and hopefully this tropical system that pushes through on Thursday doesn't mix things up too much on the fluke grounds. It's certainly the last thing we need at this time of year. Another thing to keep in mind, and looking in the canal here in Little Egg Harbor, quite a few peanut bunker. Some lagoons, I've talked to people, they say you could just about walk across the lagoon on the backs of these peanuts. Now with a summer flounder down here in this particular area, Little Egg and Great Bay, the fluking is so good in the back bays and the shallow water in the early part of the season, but as the water temperatures rise, those fish go out to deeper water. I think there's a point though, a few of us were talking about it earlier this week, some guys who I really trust, kind of thinking that at some point as the water temperatures drop a little bit and this bait starts to pour out, especially those peanuts, that they think that the fluke come back in, take another shot. It's almost like a species that comes in for two different migrations into the back bay. So keep that in mind as we get in the later stages of this season within just the next couple of weeks. But it's sure worth an opportunity to drop a live peanut and fish outside some of those creek mouths on the outgoing water. The Rock the Dock Fluke Tournament is going on this Saturday, September 4th. If you're looking for a little Labor Day competition, go to njfishingclub.com for information on that tournament. And if you don't have a boat, no problem. They've got a special tournament set up going on the Mary M4 out of Barnegat Light if you need a lift to the fluke grounds. But I think you should probably get in on that one pretty fast if you're interested in that. Again, njfishingclub.com. Congrats, by the way, down here last week, Little Egg, Great Bay Area. The Sunshine Foundation held their annual fluke tournament. Joe DeNorris, who's a regular name on the leaderboards here in Little Egg, he won the fluke division, while Eddie Evans grabbed top slot for bluefish in that Sunshine Foundation. Again, as summer crowds start to wind down at the Jersey Shore in the next week, 2 weeks or so, it's a great time to be out here on these fishing grounds. It's a great time to hit the beaches as the guards and beach checkers have gone, but it's also a nice time to travel around throughout the region to get into some of those other fishing options, especially as some of that summer traffic goes away. Ken Johnson, he let me know that he hit a Central Jersey lake recently, tossing a Gary Yamamoto chartreuse Senko that he rigged wacky style. It was a 19-inch, 3.14-pound largemouth. So it'll be nice as things start to cool off a little bit, maybe the ticks go away. You start trying some of those impoundments and look for some of the freshwater action in the Garden State. Another great travel option, of course, especially in the fall as the leaves start to turn, is the Pocono Mountains. Beltsville, Wallenpaupack, all those great areas out there in the Poconos. For more on that story, let's check in with my friend George, the Pocono Outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. The story here has been rain, and even more rain. Guys, we got hit again. Can you believe it? More flooding, more rivers high, more lakes high, and just lots of bad fishing. But you know what? The pattern holds true. Right after the last storm we had some good fishing. And a couple of guys checked in. They wanted to let us know, after that water comes down just a little bit and clears up, guys were getting on some good fish. We had Eric Earlschlegel check in with some nice bass he got down in Lake Van Sciver in Bucks County. He was fishing those newly flooded areas, and there's some high water, and he was getting a couple nice bass. So great technique there. Check out some of that new structure once that water comes up. Now, just because the water's high, things are going to be doing good. There's lots of opportunity. The stripers are still in the river. Tim Kleber checked in and says, yep, they're still getting stripers. Once that water comes back down, get back out in that striper bite. Even good friend Eric Goodstall checked in and said the smallmouth are starting to really kick up. He was fishing a tube in those deeper channels. So again, like we talked last week, deeper water, the fish are not going to be affected as much by all this rain. So guys, I hope you get out, stay dry. We have a few more of this days of this left. But good news is the temperatures are cooling down. We'll be back into that fall pattern really soon. Good fishing's coming. Hang in there. Stay dry. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
Hey, the September edition of the Fisherman magazine is out this week. You can look for the New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition at your favorite newsstands or tackle shops. Got a nice albie on the cover. Great shot from my friend Tom Lynch, Angry Fish Gallery in Point. You subscribers, keep checking your mailbox. As soon as your mailman is done reading it, I'm sure you're going to get your copy. Plenty of tactical info in there, especially geared towards the September, October, fall surf run here at the Jersey Shore. In fact, we've been talking a lot about albies the last couple of weeks. Great article about 5 lures that you might not particularly think about for throwing to those albies. We've got a beach replenishment piece, a bunch of great articles. The last minute fluke fishing out at Island Beach, pick that up in the September edition. You've also got the latest reports from North Jersey, Central, South, the freshwater report, Delaware with Eric Burnley. Nick Honicheski has your Beach Talk surf report, and of course Tom P. and his offshore fishing at the Jersey Shore. I would imagine, based on his report last week, things were looking pretty good. He mentioned something to me about the tile fish grounds, but I think it's going to be pretty quiet out there at the Hudson for the most part this weekend. But soon after, you've got all those opportunities opening up again, including deep drop tile fishing, which is what Alfred Whistler here, he pulled in a 15-pound blue line this past Friday out there at the Hudson, deep dropping for some tasty critters. Or if you're looking to stay on the inshore grounds, perhaps it gets a little bit too snotty this weekend or one of the weekends coming up, you might want to stay in the back. Well, the BI or the BB Buoy in Barnegat, Tuckerton Bay, Great Bay, all good areas where we're getting some reports of the blowfish are starting to school up. David Absecon Bay Sportsman, he told me they're schooling up in the Great Bay area at this point. In fact, 9-year-old Ryan Lawrence, he was fishing with his dad, Thomas, last week. They followed some of Captain Al Lorenzetti's advice. He has a video on the Fisherman Magazine's YouTube channel. Check it out, about mixed bag fishing, especially for some of those blowfish with a chum pot. Well, they took their advice from Al Lorenzetti, got onto a nice fine-eating northern pufferfish, our typical blowfish, and that was in Great Egg Harbor Bay last week. I know the kiddies are heading back to school this time of year, but don't forget, if you're keeping that boat in the water for the fall, September's a great a great chance for you to get out, put the chum pot in, pieces of clam, pieces of squid. You can catch some of the smaller sea bass. Sometimes you'll get some puppy drum, those blowfish, fantastic. And if you're lucky, you'll get some spot as well, some of those Cape May goodies to bring back, put it in the well, and get yourself some nice tuna or striper baits. Hey, listen, stay dry this week. Stay happy and stay buttoned up. Stay tight on that line with the fish. I'll leave you the way I've left you the last few weeks with a Coastal Kayak Clash update with Dave Anderson, our New England managing editor at the Fisherman Magazine. Catch him up.
This week in the Coastal Kayak Clash, Hardtails season came in with a vengeance and shook up the leaderboard. Chris Neves is leading the category with his 26 3/4 incher, but the one that held the most weight was Justin Oster's 24 1/4 incher that vaulted him to the top of the totem pole, even with Bob Wagner's category-leading 30-inch weakfish. Bob Wagner now holds sole possession of second place with 7 points, and Justin Oster stands alone at the top with 8. A little note on measuring hardtails. Please allow the tail to fall naturally on your ruler. We have had to make a few adjustments this week because anglers were bending the tail to give a closer look at the number, but this also augmented their score, which we had to adjust after the fact. We can't be adjusting every hardtail score, so after this weekend, bent tails will automatically be disqualified. Hardtail species are defined as false albacore or bonito, and they are the fish of the month for September, so set your mind to melting those drag washers in your quest to win Fish of the Month. And with hardtails now on the menu and blackfish starting to chew, this thing should get interesting in a hurry. Good luck.
Steigercraft boats built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.